Welcome back to Magus in the Media, and oh boy, do I like talking about anime, and that's what we're doing, and I'm doing it tonight with one of my best friends in the entire world, Nathan Hanson. I'd like to say, everyone out there, tonight the topic is going to be something upon the lines of Jujutsu Kaisen, Kagurabachi, and Sword Art Online, and you truly got to ask yourself, why does it even matter, and why do I even care? Well, I'm going to tell you why, and we're going to talk about it for the better part of an hour or two, and you're going to listen whether you like it or not, because there are secrets that lie hidden deep within the art and storytelling of these anime. And that ask is going to be what it costs to be a hero. And a lot of the times we are getting in this modern age the heroes of the West, the heroes of Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman to Spider-Man and all of the Marvel characters. And a lot of the times these Marvel characters and these DC characters from our Western Hollywood films seem to be a little dry these days, seem to be a little stale. And that is why we must turn to the fine world of the East. And in that fine world, how you doing tonight, Howard? Thanks for joining us. And in that fine world of the East, we're getting the great anime of our times. And those great anime of our times that we are finding, again, Jujutsu Kaisen has just finished their first half of the season. Kagurabachi is on the manga realms that I think everyone should fall into. And even though it's got a lot of hate, Sword Art Online is one of the most brilliant anime, no matter what anybody says, that I've ever seen. And they can fight me for it. But tonight, I do want to introduce you all to the great Nathan Hanson. Nathan Hanson, you can find him at the Art of Embodiment. He is a movement specialist, a martial artist, and a king weeb himself. Nathan, how you doing tonight, my friend?
I prefer a different term than weeb, but I suppose that would be accurate from some people. What's up, everyone? Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for coming on. We are deeply diving into these three anime. Two of them are ongoing right now, and that last one has been done for quite a long time. That's Sword Art Online. But why do you think these three anime are the ones that we should talk about for this moment?
Yeah, that's I've been wondering about if I'm going to be an SAO or a Sword Art Online apologist for this whole conversation, because so many people do hate on it. I would say it's because they actually don't understand it. But I respect everyone's hate. I'm a hater of Hunter x Hunter and One Piece and My Hero Academia. I will never watch it. And maybe people are in the comments that can tell me why I should, but I probably never will. Sword Art Online got me hooked a long time ago. And I think it's a Gnostic treatise.
We got a Gnostic treatise. There's a little lag on your end. So what he's trying to talk about is that there's a Gnostic treatise within these lovely anime. So you just come back on whenever you can. You prefer One Piece manga over the anime. Oh, nice, Howard. If you could ever tell me why you think One Piece, have you read all of the One Piece manga there, Howard? That's the true question, because for me, it's been really hard because it started so long ago. Sword Art Online is one of those anime that we truly love. And so I really get why the hate. You still there, Nathan?
Yeah, I am. I guess Sword Art Online is technically considered an isekai, right? You go into a different realm, and there is quite a bit of fan service, I've realized. But if you can last till the third season, the Alicization that's the Gnostic treatise that I really think, because they do go into quite a different world, and they talk a lot about consciousness and quantum physics and about memories locked away. And they have this beautiful example of using your mental image or your imagination channeled to strengthen your abilities. And that, to me, is pulling directly from mysticism, right? So that primary thing of that you can become stronger based off of how much you can channel your imagination or your mental image with your will and that makes you and your abilities stronger. I don't see a lot of people fleshing out the power system to that degree. Or to me, like, maybe I'm wrong, I haven't watched One Piece, but some dude who looks like Gilligan from Gilligan's Island eating a fruit who's now stretchy, I just don't, that's not my speed, bro. And if you tell me it takes 1,000 episodes to get into it, no, I'm telling you it's pretty good, which I think is great, iconic 2 seasons. And the 3rd season, it answers questions about AI. People are crazy about AI right now. It talks about that. It gets into kind of being in a dream state or tricked by the status quo, where they talk about the taboo index, which I think is kind of the woke culture opinions that everyone have. You're supposed to believe in a certain thing from the left or the right. So any of those, I guess they're hard to see if you don't really pay attention. But the thing that you find that people would find is different than me as an anime enthusiast, I don't watch them. I study them. I sit down and really look into what they're talking about, which maybe some people just sit back and watch it, but I feel like I engage with it differently.
Yeah, no, it is you must engage with these. I completely agree. We got to engage with things differently, because if we look at it through the lens of myth, magic, and meaning, and I do want to kind of break down why Sword Art Online, if that's what we're going to start with, which I definitely agree we can start with that, and I think it's brilliant. Let's start at the beginning, and let's see why it is so important in our modern age due to the rising of AI and virtual reality. And if you think that Meta is done with, and OpenAI and the likes of Oracle and Palantir aren't going to then come out with some kind of headgear that is going to put you within the great games that we're playing, you are utterly mistaken. But Sword Art Online starts off with our character's Kirito, who is a beta tester. And in being a beta tester, he gets to test the games first. And this is brilliant because he has then a layout and understanding of these games. And then as this game, Sword Art Online, comes out to the public, and everybody puts on the, what's it called? The
nerve gear?
The nerve gear, thank you. When he puts on the nerve gear and they go into the virtual reality, everyone is moving through this fantasy world, and it seems all fun and games, and Kirito is doing his thing. And then everyone goes and meets in the center area to get the layout of the game from the great master. And the idea is the great master, the creator of the game, comes on as the great demiurge, right? We get this from the Gnostic mythos of this creator god-like character, and it is the creator of the game. And everyone goes there, and he goes along trying to tell everybody what's going on. And upon doing so, everyone looks and they're like, I don't really like what's going on. They try to log out of the game. And upon trying to log out of the game, they realize that they can't log out of the game. And then certain people are like, oh, if I just kill myself, I'll be able to get out of the game. And he's like, no, if you die here, you die in real life. And they're like, well, what if the people are going to unplug me in the outside world? He goes, oh, yeah, you think so? No, this is connected to your fucking nervous system. Excuse my French. And what's going to happen is if they try to do that, it's going to kill your nervous system. And so it is one rule: finish the game, beat the game at level 99. And if you don't, you're stuck in here and as long as you can. And so it's the Gnostic mythos of you are trapped within a world, and the only way to get out is to reach Gnosis. And the idea of reaching Gnosis in this way is for these characters to reach the highest level possible and beat the big bad guys on every level of the game, reaching higher and higher until you finally have the ability to log out. What do you think about that little breakup?
Yeah, that's a perfect introduction. And yeah, if I do end up lagging in and out, just interrupt me like you did and fill it up, because you can you got the gift of the gab, and I will rely on that. But I'm glad you framed it that way, because I'm reminded everyone needs a hook, right? Howard, who's in the chat, probably got a One Piece hook at some time, and it appeals for different people. The One Piece animation doesn't hook me. I'm kind of a sucker for nice, sharp animation like they had, and the fights being super colorful. I like swords. So those things all simply hook me. And I was watching Adult Swim, right? We're freaking pretty much 40. So when we were watching this anime, we were kids before it was cool. So I had to find it on Toonami, right, and Adult Swim. And I remember catching the end of one of the last episodes. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen SAO, I'm going to spoil the first 2 seasons. We probably will, or at least the first one for you, because it's been a while, so get with it. But he figures out who the demiurge is. He like looks over and is like, oh, Heathcliff, the main guy, his life hasn't gone down this whole time. And so he pretty much attacks him, right? He challenges God almost in a way, or the demiurge. And then it finds out that he indeed is the one who made this. And then they go into a duel together and Kirito loses, right? He actually does get killed, but before his consciousness gets deleted, just his simple will to live and also to protect his girlfriend, which is like the thing that he's got the harem of a bunch of chicks, right? They all love him. And he's got that honor, that spirit. And with his intention and his will, he comes back to life to finish the game. So this example that, I don't know, technology is kind of the last, is kind of different from our consciousness. They start to bridge that gap of with enough intention and will, your magical will, you can influence and overcome anything. And that lesson is like beautifully illustrated in that way. I feel like Western things try to do it, but for some reason that really hits for me, is him coming back and conquering technology with his will to live and his love for protecting his girlfriend.
Yeah, I really like that. I like the idea. So in this anime and Sword Art Online, again, why it's so brilliant is because we're finding ourselves in the age of virtual reality and AI. And the deeper and deeper we get into our tech, and the deeper and deeper it's integrated into our very beings, we think that the cyborg of the future is going to be something where you're half man, half machine. And we got to realize that that's already happening in our day and age. We're already half man, half machine because we carry A, the cell phone in our pockets at all times, and B, we carry our Bluetooth speakers in our ears. And so it's like we're already integrating into these things at all times. And so these great anime have the ability to reflect and be a mirror of our experiences. And so Sword Art Online has one of those abilities to be reflected upon these things, because if you think about it, we are all trapped within our own every day-to-day experience, and sometimes we want to be able to log off from those experiences, which is why then we go into our entertainment spheres to try to live a life that we don't live in our everyday experience. And so this game has that ability to show us that reflection in people, because even though you're supposed to die if in real life, if you are killed in the game, upon the story unfolding, you get characters who are, I think, red characters. The idea is that you know, you're blue or green or whatever it is on your thing, and you have that ability, and it shows that you're a good guy or a bad guy. And then there's characters who kill other people. And so if you kill somebody there, obviously they die in real life. But then you get the question, it's like, how do you believe that they're actually dead? That's one of the scenes that we're seeing with these characters who go around and loot other people's things. And so as the game progresses, the great Ronin character, Ronin meaning you have no master, Kirito is one of those Ronin-like characters who is the lone swordsman, right? Isn't that like he's the black lone swordsman. He's white, black as the sword itself.
Yeah, that's a big thing about his aura forming, right? Is he the dude? He solos the front lines. And so he's got this myth around him that he's been the one to challenge the strongest bosses of the game alone. And that's actually an interesting example of the red characters claiming that they don't have any proof that people actually die. So what's the big deal of killing people? And what you kind of learn later is there's this own faction, right? The Laughing Coffins. And you learn in season 3 that one of the main characters of this Laughing Coffins is pretty much a bunch of murderers, right? They're murderers in the real world, and they came into SAO to keep on killing people because they thought it'd be fun. And you actually learn that the bad guy who carries over to season 3 jumps in the nerve gear willingly after he learns that you go in there and will be trapped. And if you die in the game, you die in real life, right? He's watching the news and is like, oh, really? Like, okay, I'm just going to go in here and wreak havoc then. And so I think he's the leader of Laughing Coffin. you learn later also that he deliberately challenges Kirito to kill somebody, or he puts him in a situation where he has to compromise his integrity as someone who doesn't want to kill, right? And so in a way, like, the laughing coffin guy thinks that Kirito thinks that he's better than him for not killing people. Like, there's this thing of, oh, look at you strutting around feeling like you're the main character energy and the good guy. I'm going to show that you're just like me. And this happens a lot. It happens in Kagurabachi as well. And also in Jujutsu Kaisen, Mahito is trying to convince Yuji Itadori that they're the same. And that's like one of the main psychological tricks that the bad guys use is, you're not any different than me. Don't you see that we're the same and I'm a reflection of you? And it's almost a mistake. Different characters find an answer for it. I think Chihiro's answer in Kagurabachi is the best answer. We'll get to that later. But a lot of the times the main character tries to fight against that and deny it and say, no, I'm not like you. And usually the big people who come to terms with it or accept it are the ones who kind of transcend this back and forth of, I'm not better than you just because I try to save people's lives. I'm just living out the best answer I have to the chaos that we live in. Like, that's usually what the story is yeah, it's a world full of suffering, and your answer might be, who cares? It doesn't matter what you do, which is that like moralistic relativism that we're running into nowadays, the nihilism. And then these main characters in these Japanese myths are like, no, the right call is to keep on moving forward, try to create, I guess, the least amount of harm you possibly can, which is what Chihiro says, and pretty much accepting that, yeah, I'm some version of a monster, but I am going to kind of redeem my mistakes by putting my legs underneath me and keep on walking forward, like Alphonse Elric says in the Full Metal Alchemist, an iconic one for us, right? So all these stories are kind of telling the same story, right? They're always like, okay, you're going to confront someone who's going to challenge you and ask you, like, what's the reason, what's the meaning, what's the purpose for what you do? And their battles represent they're living out their why. They're not just clashing swords. They're telling the adversary, this is why, through their fight. And sometimes they actually have an exposition, like a talk about it. But the best ones, like we saw in Infinity Castle, or we saw in the latest episode of Jujutsu Kaisen, which Western media doesn't do, they will illustrate for you what their why is, what the meaning behind their sword is as they're fighting.
And Demon Slayer.
Yeah, and Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, people are complaining about the exposition, but you and I agreed that they're going back and forth and reminding you continuously, this is why Tanjiro fights. Who's that guy who's got the granite blast? His name is Ryu. So yeah, Ishigori. Like, why is he strong? Yeah, I have more to say about that, but I'll stop there. The point being, like, that these red players, these laughing coffin players, like, think that they have the answer by just living however they want to, and Kirito takes a different path of honor, right, and the Ronin code of trying to save people and kind of trying to prove to himself in the world that the best way to be is to defend, what you believe in and defend your friends, right?
Yeah, no, he does truly, these characters that we like Kirito. I mean, and what ends up happening is that he then becomes part of a group of individuals, but it leads him to, interesting enough, a community through his outward extension of the feminine, which is his anima, which is Asuna, one of the greatest, strongest female characters in all of anime. And anybody can fight me if they don't think that she's super badass in what she is doing. And the idea of what's going on is when Kirito first meets her, he doesn't trust her, and they do defeat this bad guy, but then he walks away and does his thing, and she's kind of an blah blah blah. Kirito has tons of harems, not the point. But what ends up coming upon that is that they end up integrating themselves. They end up getting married in the game because they've been living there for such a long time. And if you tell me that how we age physically, chronologically, and biologically are all the same, then we're not truly understanding what suffering, stress, and the hero's journey does to an individual. And that's what we're witnessing as we see even these characters who are like 13 through 16 years old. All these characters are super young. Even Itachi in Naruto is like 16 years old as he slaughters his entire family, as he's trying to ascend the ranks and trying to understand the greatest conspiracies of their time, that actually some fertility goddess Atsuki is controlling some fucking Madara character who's actually thinking that he's in control, but it's actually along down the lines. And so
yeah, spoiler alert, the main big bad guy of Naruto is a rabbit astral, an interdimensional like cosmic rabbit goddess who has a crush on a tree. And so that's what's fucking cool about these anime is that they don't actually care about being cool. Like when they do, it's sweet. But like we see with Chainsaw Man, like the first episode is about a pink puppy dog toy with a chainsaw for a nose, and I'm like, this is stupid. And then it has it, you know, they bring it in like he's going to sacrifice himself to replace the main character's heart, and then he becomes a Chainsaw Man. It's always about that self-sacrifice. That's what's great about these stories, is that they're always a mixture of kind of goofy and not being too caught up with being cool, and then they'll always kind of bring it back to, well, it's about like living your why, the integrity behind your actions, and then fighting these, I don't know, these calamities like Madara and Utsutsuki or Sukuna, right? Because a lot of these are examples of the things that we struggle with in our everyday life. So what your battle making me think about it is these kids being 16. I think it's easy to like glorify this thing of like, oh, I want to be a warrior too. Like, oh, I want to be 18 and be in the front lines or be in the military and be fighting and killing people. And that's actually, I think, not the right way to think about it. It's easy to look at these things and say they're glorifying violence. But I think, as you and I know from martial artists, we're not talking about just fighting. We're talking about refining our spirit, right? The sword is, as we know from occultism, is a reflection or a symbol for the mind. And right, so we're refining our ability of, you could say, like our intuitional, inspirational, imaginative, and willpower, or our self-awareness, right? These enlightened human qualities. We're trying to refine those, and then we want to go out in the world, and nature, or Madara, or Sukuna, or like pick your bad guy, you know, subtilizer, as we're talking about in SAO right now, right? The big bad guy of the last season of SAO, his name is Subtilizer, and they're confront each other, and Kirito asks Subtilizer, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm a hunter and a thief and a destroyer," right? That gives me chills. So he's not fighting a person in a battle about strength and skill. He's fighting the embodiment of destruction and thievery and someone who hunts souls. Right? So that's a big deal. So we're going to confront people or reflections of ourselves, right? This is all happening within our own minds. We can think of it as a description or an interpretation of our psyche, right? He's confronting a destroyer and a thief. Why not just steal things, right? Why not take advantage and just use power and control? And then the answer is, Kirito gives him his answer by fighting. And I try to like describe like what the answer is, but I can't do it because these anime are describing it to us through images. You have to go in and feel why this is not just a battle about strength and speed and technique, and why it's more about expressing like why you choose to live, the meaning behind your life in the face of the destroyer, right? And like that's freaking brilliant. Like, name me a Western themed myth that does it better than that. I just don't. I've watched SAO 5 times over, and I still think it's just stunning.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's what these anime are doing for us is that not only are giving us amazing action-based choreographed fight scenes, it comes along with it with many different layers of characterized art styles as well as then you're getting mythology that not only stems from the Western esoteric tradition of magic, stemming from the Western mythologies of a Hellenized world and Cimarron 4, it also epitomizes how you see the Eastern philosophies, the embodiment of these Eastern philosophies using all the different animistic philosophies of Shintoism, Buddhism, Taoism, as well as the Near East styles of Hinduism and all these different things. But with those, a lot of the times it's through the great suffering, something I was talking about Jin last night, but it's through the great suffering and the acts of sacrifice, we then gain certain levels of experience, which gives us the ability to stand on our own feet and create new levels, power levels that we've never witnessed before. Sometimes it's through the martial arts that they're doing. Other times it's through harnessing the elements, which is very much a good mixture between Western and Eastern, Western magic and Eastern mysticism, all the way up. As each time then, interesting enough, it's kind of like when you're, anybody out there has done anything to play with like Final Fantasy, when they're like farming their things, when they're farming out there, it's like you don't want to go into sections. You don't want to go into sections that you're not able to defeat. That's the idea. And so what you are going out there is like when you level yourself up, just like the universe, just like our experience, you're going to be able to confront different dragons, different demons, different people out there. And hopefully you magnetize towards the experiences that you can actually defeat. And most of the time you can't do that. And yes, you are. And so, and most of the time you can't do that because if you try to go defeat something that you're not able to defend yourself against, you're going to get your ass kicked. And so the idea is that if you don't want to get your ass kicked, you got to go fight battles that you can actually defeat. So that means you're not supposed to go fight dragons that aren't on your path. And so if these dragons aren't on, if there's dragons on your path, then you should defeat them, but you shouldn't go looking for them. And that's like my distaste for social justice warriors and different levels that go upon that, because it's not just whatever's on the one left-hand extreme. It's also on the right-hand extreme that you shouldn't go looking for religions or a distaste in different cultures that you don't like, because those things are going to come back and haunt you. And that is what karma does for you. And that
right. It's not like, it would be easy to think that we're advocating for, sit at home and be your armchair philosopher and flesh out what you believe about things, and then go out and try to like pick battles and debate people. I guess that would be my right. We're not advocating to be Charlie Kirk. That will get you shot. Don't
be Kirked. Don't be Kirked. Don't marry Erica. Okay. Yeah. That's there.
But not by Israel. They didn't do it. They love Charlie Kirk, right?
Yeah, exactly. No honeypots here. We're not Winnie Poohing ourselves. Okay, let's move on.
But this is a good point with what Mahito says to Yuji Itadori, right? So Mahito first takes out Nanami, and Yuji kind of bounces back from it, right? There's this idea that you have to carry on the burden of the people before you and keep on walking forward. It's kind of like your curse, which you also pull your power from. If I think I'm kind of understanding what they're saying, and as far as the curses go, and inheriting the destiny of the people who die before you. So he kind of, I don't know, recovers from that pretty well. Yuji does, but then he sees, what is her name, Brandon? Nobura. Yeah.
Nobura.
And then Mahito kills Nobura, and that is a little tough. He starts to like lose his will, and Mahito says this to him: "I bet you thought you'd be defeating ghosts like in an old fairy tale. That's what you thought you'd be doing when you came down here, wasn't it? Damn brat, you're so naive. This is war. It's not some fight to correct a mistake. It's a clash of what we believe is right. You and your fragile ideas of justice." So that's kind of what might happen if you go out and seeking these things. You're going to confront someone who, Mahito's not confused. He's not misunderstood. he's the embodiment of malevolence and destruction. And to confront someone like that, thinking that, oh, this is just, I think I'm going to convince this person with my words. It does, we realize that we come to a point where that's what the battle is. And maybe that's what these myths are showing us is you kind of live by example. You demonstrate how to live with your life. And that's how you change the world, is by self-reflecting, working on yourself, whether that be meditation or a martial art or reading more or just treating yourself and your loved ones better. That is the battle, because constantly we're being told that, be online more. It doesn't really matter. You need to go out and change the world, or just sit at home and, collect unemployment. Wherever we're kind of being taken in this surveillance system state is kind of the whisper of mother culture right now, telling us to just kind of like give up and it doesn't matter with atheism. And then you see, as demonstrated for when Toto shows up, is he gives us this Buddhist quote. I think you remember he's talking about, he's pretty cocky. He definitely auriforms. He shows up and like, we are alone, the chosen ones. And he gives Yuji a little pep talk. And so then you have your friend to come here and kind of pick you back up. And if we're going to go out and seeking for fights, a lot of us don't really have that Toto to show up, because, right, these aren't really outward displays of physical actions that we're talking about. Like we're saying, these aren't just battles. You could say every anime is a reflection of what's going on in your own mind. You are Mahito. There's a Sukuna in your own mind too. And so to also think that like, oh, I'm Kirito and I'm the main character energy, right? And I'm the hero and all this. That's the wrong way to think about it as well. You need to remember, how do you relate to even the bad guys in this? Because you can be them too. And so these battles are happening psychologically as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And so the idea is to make sure you remember you're both, as in these anime, you're both the big bad guy. You're both what's the main bad guy in JJK besides Sukuna? You are Sukuna, the king of all curses, the great egregore of all egregores, somebody who takes their, so he is a dark sorcerer in that world. Jutsu sorcery. So he has the ability to tap into the cursed energy of his body. And if you can tap into your cursed energy, that means you can then create certain fighting powers and styles based upon your inner nature, which is why Jujutsu Kaisen is so much different than other anime, which, like in Naruto, for instance, if you have multiple different elements and things, you can do all kinds of crazy fucking techniques. But in Jujutsu Kaisen, the only techniques that you can do and then refine to gain more power, unless obviously you're the main character, Yuji Itadori, or you're Yuta Okotsu, one of the most badass characters of all time, or if you're Gojo, but still locked into his realm. The idea of Yuta Okotsu is that he has the ability, like Kakashi Sensei, Kakashi Hatake in Naruto, to be able to copy other people's stuff. But to put it within a realm is that Yuta has to hold himself back, as in he gets 5 seconds to do 10 seconds, 30 seconds. He only gets a certain time frame to be able to copy somebody's technique and to be able to use it. But to go back to your main point is that we don't only have the good guy within us. And so it's actually really important to understand the deep, dark nature of the monster within. And that monster within, the best way to analyze it is that the only way to be the hero and to be courageous is to confront the internal monster. You're not just trying to live within the love and the light and the beauty of the world. That is the idea of why we must go into the dark depths of our unconscious, of the shadow, and integrate the shadow work, and then to fight the great dragons within. And then in, say, Jujutsu Kaisen, the great dragon within is Sukuna, the king of all curses, somebody who doesn't seem like, he's kind of like the Joker character in Batman. It's that, some people just want to watch the world burn. And I want everyone out there to realize that in your magical path, working in your practice as a mystic, you're trying to just be the fullest accentuation of an individual individual, because that's what you are. All these identities are meaningless unless we understand that we're trying to discard all identities to hit the purest substance of ourself. And so shout out to 8 Young Stitches 8. He's great out there. Thank you, bro. But the idea is that even in the Kagurabachi, which we haven't gotten to yet, but in Sword Art Online, Kirito, some would say that he is, what's the term? He is Mary Sue, I think, is one of the things that people like.
Yeah, I've seen that he's an overpowered character gone like wrong. And you know what I will say, in the first 2 seasons, it's true. Like, I got through it because of the hook, and it is kind of like he can do no wrong. And I even had some gripe with how he was, I don't know, like such a good guy. And the first 2 seasons were just about like silly fan service stuff. But I'm telling people, you can even skip the first 2 seasons and just watch Alicization. It's a standalone series. You might be confused with some of the characters later, but you get a new character and you get introduced, and you're like, there's this Yuji kind of character, which is dope. And so you get this story later where at the end of the first half of Alicization, before War of Underworld, you watch the end, and his consciousness is fried, and he ends up being unconscious for the first half of the last season, right? And so he might be overpowered, but then you see him struggle so much with the people that he's killed, the people that he failed to save. And there's this beautiful illustration of the people who believe in you, right? It might be your family, it might be your friends. It might be just the archetype of your indomitable spirit. You could say that, coming to you and reminding you why it is you fight. That might be like Yuji. And then you get his sister and his 2 other girlfriends, right? The idea of bravery, right? The archetype of forgiveness and compassion. They all come to him and remind him why it is he fights. And then he wakes up in the nick of time, and Aura Farm's watching that scene where he awakens and saves everybody from the main bad guy. And that all is happening within his consciousness. It's important to see that we all, maybe I'll just speak about myself. Beating myself up and being embarrassed or shameful or regretful about things I've said, choices I've made, opportunities I've squandered, all that stuff. And these stories remind me that I don't have to beat myself up for it. There's that visceral scene where Kirito is trying to pull his heart out, right? He's literally trying to kill himself. And that's maybe what some people, what I've been doing is, deliberately kind of like, what's it in like monks, they flagragate themselves. What's that term?
They flog themselves.
Yeah.
Flogging. They fucking take a fucking mace like thing whip, and they slap themselves, and it's all about the sins. Sins.
Exactly. Yeah, we're all doing that
because your God wants you to do that.
Yeah. We're all kind of doing that in our consciousness, and then the only way and then Yuji is to come back and be like, yeah, you can keep on fighting. Let's do this together. And when I feel the chill of a character giving a little push from behind, right? Sharing, grabbing the Keyblade with you, lifting you up from the dark depths of your unconscious, like in Kingdom Hearts. The chills I get feel deeper than just I'm watching a cool anime or playing a cool video game. To me, they're reminding me like these core values, this nature of what consciousness is in our life that we're living, is continually remembering like why it is we live, why it is we fight, why it is we want to transform and grow and continue on the path in the face of an oppressive, corrupt government or our own psyche telling us we're not good enough. And if you watch that season, you get all that if you're paying attention. And you even need to watch the beginning. People don't watch the intros and the outros. To hell with those people. It gets me hyped, right? I'm like feeling that's why I love anime so much, is the intros of freaking Jujutsu Kaisen, of Chainsaw Man, of Demon Slayer. You don't get those intros in Western myths either, right? They're giving you these images of what you're in store for. And I just think it's such a beautiful illustration of what happens when Kirito gets resurrected, even though in the first 2, to your point, He was a little bit of a overpowered character gone wrong, but that whole thing is rewritten, and the growth of the character is stunning. So again, me just being
well, they fixed that with him being a beta character, and so that's the idea: is how good are you at writing this? Not you, but how is the great Ewing at writing a story? Is that if he was a beta character, that means he got to start with more points right away, and so you can consider that idea through the Gnostic myth of certain levels of following yourself through the transmigration of the soul. And so the idea is that you had the ability to remember certain amounts of your past life. So in this life, you were able to level up a little bit quicker, or have the ability to remember some of the things. So maybe you were better at one thing or the other, and that lays the foundational framework of why Plato talks about the charioteers with the all good horse and the black and the white, right? The horse that is going to lead us up as far as it can go into the forms. And then you have that black horse, which is all of our lower desires and all of the negative consequences and causations and effects that we've gone through, that's holding back the white horse from reaching up into the forms. And so in the Phaedrus of the Platonic dialogues, that's where you're going to get this idea of how when we die, we move through and try to witness the beauty of the forms. And as we do that, we get to take a little bit of that wisdom, and then we only get little bits and grasps. And then as we fall back into this reality, into the reality of sense experience, which Plato would call it's the mimesis, the representation of the forms, which is in the Buddhistic terms, we get the illusion we are within Maya. We are and we are confronted with Mara, the great lie, the great evil temptress God character that's trying to stop Buddha from transcending, Buddha meaning awakening, which is then leading us to Gojo, the great Satoru Gojo, who through his own death has the ability to transcend that, didn't die completely, but died just enough to realize the greatest of all beauties, have that near-death experience, to see something that is peak of all peaks, and then understand his own reversed curse technique, which then would be the positive interaction between cursed energy, thus being able to heal himself and understand hollow purple. Everyone should go see that fucking scene. It's one of the dopest scenes of all time. But let's bring it back to what I was talking about, is that Kirito was a beta tester, and that's how we beat Mary Sue allegations. We're beating the Mary Sue allegation right now. And what that means is we're trying to beat the idea that he's just an overpowered character. Well, obviously he's not. And the reason that I'm fighting for him not being that is because he realized the same thing that Edward Elric realized through the journey of Full Metal Alchemist. The only way to beat the demiurgic god that's trying to destroy all things is through family and friends and community, which leads us to everyone out there that's listening right now. We're trying to formulate a community, which what I'm doing with this channel and what everyone that I work with is doing with their channels, and Nathan's trying to do out in the world, is that we're formulating a community of not just like-minded individuals, but individuals who are trying to help break themselves free, who see through the illusion of all things and understand that only through having a modern myth, an understanding of the, as the great Miguel Connor would talk about, he would say, you must find your own myth, write your own gospel, right? And that idea comes from taking all of the great understandings of today, because sometimes it's really hard to pick up fucking Homer and just read the Odyssey or the Iliad. It's written, unless you really like that kind of classical poetry, it's going to be really hard, and you're going to be confronted with your own demons as you read some of this ancient script. And the reason is because you must defeat the great demiurge from within, your own ego. And upon doing that, you will be able to take in deeper and more amounts of information, deeper stories, a different language. Even the idea of, and Peter Gray talked about this, is that when we have the ability to take lines from great writing, we then have the ability to put that into our daily practices, because it's right there for us. You don't have to open up some fucking grimoire, ancient grimoire that is meaningless to you. You can take one of the greatest of all classical literatures, like John Milton in Paradise Lost. You can take the Odyssey from Homer. You can take any of these things, or you take like what Nathan just did. He took a few quotes from some of these conversations, and you can find these in our modern myths of today. because these great magicians who are these artists, these Japanese artists who are jumping out of windows for you people, jumping out of windows for you people to create great art, and you don't even meditate to their greatness.
Yeah, that's what I hope is that this does reach some of these Japanese artists, because the things that we when we talk about these things, I really want to know. We've asked the question, right? Is Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, is he intimately familiar with the story of Cain and Abel? Right. Because Indra, Ashura, Naruto, Sasuke, it's hard not to see the parallels here with Cain and Abel, the eternal brotherly rivalry, or maybe they have it in their own myth. But what I think you and I have come to the conclusion that it's less about if they are, like the creator of Sword Art Online is directly reading Gnostic scripts, or instead it's more that this phenomenon emerges that when you really give yourself in sacrifice to tell a story, and right, these Japanese artists, they're not doing anything if not sacrificing for us to tell these stories. Yeah. If you really do that, and you allow yourself to write a story where you employ your imagination and unlock the spring of inspiration and creativity, you tap into timeless images, right? Archetypal themes that you can't help but convey if you hold the values of honor and dignity, right? Samurai code and altruistic strength above all else. It seems that you don't really need to be a well-studied philosopher or reader if you're just dedicating yourself to tell the story and you believe in things like dignity and honor and respect in the face of the destroyer, in face of, thievery, in face of despair or nihilism. And also don't write a story based off of an ideology or an agenda, which people can't seem to fucking get the idea. Like, stop writing about. Anyway, if you can resist the temptation to want to tell a story based off of, some ideology, and instead just tell a good story, there's going to be an expression that emerges about what happens when you refine the human spirit and wield it to create and protect rather than destroy and control, right? This common theme of these main characters, again, from the magical occultism, you could say refining their will, their fire, their sword, their mental faculties, and then going out in the world and embarking and battling pretty much whatever comes in their way. And I think that's probably what's happening, as opposed to these Japanese artists, reading, and maybe the Full Metal Alchemist gal, she's definitely seems to be studied. That doesn't seem like accidental, but it's so cyclical. These ideas come up so much. So maybe, if nothing else, we're hanging out with our friends and we're building a community, and maybe we'll get an answer from one of these artists one day as whether or not they deliberately knew they were writing a Gnostic treatise when they were writing Sword Art Online, because it does look like a pretty fan servicey, silly, Mary Sue kind of thing. But I don't know, man. When you talk about Gnosticism and look at some of the terms they use for their power systems, in the third season, they have this thing called object control authority, which to me is just a metaphor for physical strength, right? Your object control, meaning you just build up your physical strength, and then you can, items feel like lighter. You're doing work in practice to become stronger. And then they have the system control authority, which to me means it's mental strength. It's when your authority is higher than the laws of kind of nature, you start to gain access to certain skills, start to be able to influence reality a little bit. And if you can create a strong mental image and challenge it through your imagination, you can temporarily boost your stats. And if this person has confidence or a will to win, their power can be amplified many, many times over. And to me, this is talking about Nietzsche's, he who has a why can bear any how. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. in a big way, right? They're not, they're not just wielding a sword, they're wielding their why. And their battles are challenging those virtues and those values and that why, right? Because it shows that it's not just about developing physical strength or it's about having a strong spirit and testing it against nature. Because nature, you could say that that's what these calamities are. That's what bad guys are, is their adversity and suffering incarnate. And cool little note here that you get a lot in Japanese myths, not in Western myths. When you defeat incarnate destruction, adversity, and suffering, you don't snuff it out. You don't exterminate it and kill it forever, right? To a fault, Goku, Naruto, they forgive them, right? Vegeta, Piccolo, all a bad guy, right? Naruto forgiving, who's the guy behind pain? Forgetting his name in Naruto.
Oh, Nagato.
Yeah, Nagato. That scene is a great example of two people, like he just had the fight and then they have a conversation. Why is it that you fight? What do you believe in? The world is all suffering. They have a talk. Naruto doesn't kill him. He instead forgives him, and then he pretty much saves everyone he killed, right? So we don't want to extinguish the existence of whether you want to call it evil or adversity or suffering. These myths show us that you want to learn to walk alongside them. You befriend the beast, right? You befriend the nine tails, the demon inside you, and you start to draw power from each other. So we're shown then the value of cooperation, not just about power. But they're not naively assuming that they can just talk this person into it, right? You can't talk Sukuna. He's not, they have to fight. You got to fight him first. And then you have that discussion like in your psyche when your swords are clashed, when your fists are pressed up against each other, you have that.
And here's a panel of Nagato looking at Uzumaki Naruto. So Nagato is basically become anorexic through this story, and he is locked into a tree where he takes these rods. He's not anorexic, just so everybody knows. But the idea is that he has these abilities to use these rods, and he controls the 6 paths of pain, which is obviously stemming from Buddhism, right? So you're getting this really brilliant Buddhistic reference of what the 6 paths of pain are. And Naruto then goes and defeats all the 6 paths of pain. And in doing so, he realizes that that energy is actually coming from something. And so the energy is coming from something, and he follows the chakra lines. Again, we're getting all of these same things we've been talking about for a very long time, is that through anime and storytelling, like the story of Naruto, you're getting the story of Naruto Uzumaki. Uzumaki has a very long line in Japanese mythology, but you're getting the story of him taking in the 9 tails demon fox, which you're going to get in a lot of our mythologies, Japanese mythologies of Buddhism and Shintoism. And doing so, he's taking on different both characters as friends and characters as enemies. And Naruto has the great ability of talk no jutsu, which means he has the ability to talk to individuals and make them friends. Funny enough, it's the same thing that Yuji Itadori is doing in his own way throughout all of JJK. And then what else is happening? You get that same kind of mythology going on of we must make friends with everybody. So there is a time to throw hands, and there is a time to throw energy, but there's also a time to throw our words, use the great logos to bring people into levels of understanding. And when you can bring somebody into a level of understanding, like through empathy, through compassion, through putting yourselves in their shoes, you can talk somebody down off a ledge, like destroying the entire world. Because pain, if you go back to that understanding, pain in Naruto is wanting to bring upon pain the pain that he suffered. And so doing, he doesn't believe anyone has suffered as much pain as he had. And so he is going to show everyone their suffering and the pain that he has had. Thus, he calls himself Pain. And so that character Pain is Nagato's best friend, Yihiko. And so the idea is that then through the destruction, through Naruto's great spirit and will, the 9 tails fox being within him, he wants everybody to like him, and he wants to make friends with everybody because he didn't have a family, because his family died. And so what he's trying to do is he has the ability to have his mystical practice, he meditates, within. He hones his chakra. He has his magical practice where he goes upon the lines of controlling his own willpower and has his rituals that they're doing throughout the show. And he's manipulating situations, right? This isn't a negative level of manipulation. This is using words and our hands as artists in the world, carving upon the scenery. And so as he goes to that, he has and uses the cup of compassion at the right moments to follow the chakra lines to where pain is in this great tree, through his great bulimia and anorexia of the great pain that we all feel when we're hungry, even though that's not what's going on. What he's actually feeling is the pain of all his friends dying. And so when we finally get there, he talks him down, because what pain wants to do is he is looking to basically destroy all things. The almighty push, and he's going to do even more than that. He's going to start resurrecting.
Yeah, he wants to be the arbiter of the consequences or of karma. He's taking it upon himself to try to solve the issue of suffering or take revenge on the corrupt world of the ninja. And instead, he realizes, right, the error of his ways by coming into contact with Sage Chakra Naruto. He has the best intro of any anime ever, dropping in on the toad. Yeah, that, if not anything, is one of the great lessons I think we can pull from these stories of, Yuji does it a different way in the series of not befriending these people from fighting them, right? The creator does it in a different way of he does fight them, but like with Choso, Yuji loses.
Yeah.
And he comes back to life because Sukuna's inside of him. So it is a little bit like Naruto. But Choso doesn't kill him because he realizes like they're brothers. And so it's tied in a little bit to like what Yuji's bloodline is. But they illustrate this idea of his ability to kind of change people's hearts based off of just his goodness or his nature. It's maybe the difference between original sin or original blessing, which is more like an Eastern view, is that we're all inherently good. And even though Choso really wanted to kill him, like he realizes that they're brothers, or like Toto is a good guy, but they're initially fighting and then they turn out to want to be friends because he has this brotherly care for him because he is so skilled, right? Like that's such a great example of making sure to not just other or think about that your enemy is evil, and instead being willing to, you kind of have an honor among thieves. I love this idea of, right, not kick someone when they're down, or honor among thieves. These ninjas are fighting each other to the death, but they're also doing it because they all believe in something. There's some kind of like meaning or purpose behind their fight, not just for blatant war and to take over, but because they really believe that this is like the right way forward, or they're just trying to protect what they love.
Yeah.
And those, to seeing that illustrated in these fights, I know that the whole point of this was to focus on SAO and Jujutsu Kaisen and Kagurabachi, but you can't help but bring out Naruto, right? It's iconic. It's like the first one. Yeah, well,
Naruto's one of the greats. Yeah. It's what they call the big three. Naruto's the big three, and so it's definitely in there.
Bleach, I think.
That's Howard's shouting out. Bleach is what he was saying.
It's a great point. Before we go on to more delving into why I love JJK so much and what's been striking me is, let's give a shout out to a couple other ones, and I want to mention how beautiful Japanese storytelling is, specifically with again, we don't like to tell people what to do, but unless it's anime, you should watch things. I'm never going to tell you to watch. Actually, don't watch Naruto. I'm someone who's like, it's too long, don't watch it. I read the manga, then I watched the anime. So you can or you can't. Instead, focus on Psycho-Pass.
Psycho-Passes.
And you did an episode on this, but again, whether or not they did this on purpose, they wrote a story as a response to the loss of human sovereignty and creativity. And they talk about the dangers of an overprotective system. And if you want to see an illustration of something, of the dangers to come, watch Psycho-Pass. The other one, which I found crazy, I don't know if I actually told you this, Brandon. When 6 years ago, a thing happened where we all had to stay inside. And a couple years went by, and I was like, I wonder if an anime talked about what's happening right now. And I had a suspicion it was Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. I rewatched that anime, which again I would saw on YouTube or Toonami. Not the Ghost in the Shell movie. You can watch that. The anime standalone complex, the first one. It discussed and it predicted how the institutions censor information for their own financial gain. In Ghost in the Shell, they suppress a drug that can help people recover from the ailment of having technology put into their brains. They suppress some drug so then they can put forward something else that will make them money, right? Standalone Complex was like in the early 2000s or something, or maybe even the 90s, right? So, I mean, we talk about The Simpsons and stuff, but I think Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex is way more entertaining. They have these little philosophical treatises in the middle where these AI people are talking to each other. Bro, I don't know what's going on, but if you want a little snippets of that, go also just good stuff, entertaining things.
Yeah, I should watch that.
Those two are great. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so just everyone knows they will be getting Ghost in the Shell breakdowns, and that'll be great in the future. Now, tell me about. Let's get into the newest manga out there right now before we get back to JJK. Tell me about the Kagurabachi. We initially screwed up the name when I was coming out with the first two.
Yeah, that was actually my fault. That was my fault.
Breaking it down, I blame Nathan. But I, again, am not a victim to Nathan's lack of Japanese, and so I blame only myself. The idea is that we, upon losing a lot of our anime, which are finished in the manga world, him and I are both manga readers, and if you're not a manga reader, are you a true weeb in the actual sense of kingdom? I don't think you are, and so the idea is you must become a manga reader. That's my propaganda for the evening, besides everything else that we're saying. But the idea in the mangas is that you're going to be able to, it's so fast to read each chapter, you can skim through it, or you can really amaze at the difficulty of people becoming mangakas. Mangaka means that they're, in the Western comic books, you get an artist and you get a writer. In a Western world, or in the Eastern, so that's in the West, and sometimes you get people who are both. J.H. Williams III wrote one of the greatest Batwoman comic books of all time before it was taken on by somebody shitty and they ruined it. So even J.H. Williams III, who is one of the most brilliant comic book artists of all time, go check out Promethea, check out Batwoman, check out the new the Sandman Overture. His art is so exquisite and beautiful. It's so, he even makes things like a lesbian redheaded gay Batwoman sound fucking cool. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about that. It doesn't matter any of the nonsense that people want to call woke or whatever it is. None of that matters. The only thing that matters to me and this channel and most of the people that I know is, can you produce a great story? And if you can't, I don't buy it. So I don't care what all of the identity things you want to put out there. If your story is great, I will read it and I will like it and I will watch it, because these stories come from our heart. They come from the mind, and they come from our experiences. And so you're going to get characters that are all colors, shapes, sizes, love interests, and all the things. And so the ability to be able to then tap into the great unconscious realm of mythology and religion and contemporary religions and the great archetypes of the world, you can then stitch together, and I would say discover a land forgotten. And that land forgotten is the land that is seeing what is going on in our everyday world. And so to go back to why I even brought that up is because of, there are very few in the Western world comic book realms where you get somebody who can both write and draw a great story. Another great one, wrote fucking, it's a Japanese story. It's amazing. And it's called, do you remember? It's the one where it's Kabuki. It's amazing. And he actually designed that as his graduate work. So for this guy's graduate work, he wrote and and did the art for his own comic book Kabuki. And Kabuki is based off of the Japanese Kabuki dancers that wear the masks, who are also NAO assassins. And it does it in such a beautiful way. And you get to really be involved in the story. And so that leads me to what a mangaka is. Mangaka is a writer and illustrator of their own design. And that's, again, why I think I don't know if we've ever talked about this. We probably have. The idea of why these Japanese comic books are so great, the animes, the mangas into animes, that's why. Because it's not split into many people. You're getting one individual being able to have a vision and then put it not only into words, but from words into actual form. So form follows function, function follows idea. And from those things, we're getting all the way back into why I think some of these stories are so brilliant. And so the idea is Kagurabachi is created by a certain mangaka who's writing a story about sorcery, swordsmanship, and a love of a boy and his father, and that father dying. First issue, it's not a spoiler. The whole story is a revenge story. And it's not just any old revenge story, because it is actually placed in our time frame. It's not just a revenge story of a boy and his father. It's now become something bigger than that as we're moving through this manga. It's so big that it goes back to
show you some
war.
Yeah, so we can show you some panels of how, I think that's what's got me hooked in a big way of Kagurabachi, is he is such a good artist. And he's not, you can see the writer of JJK, things get a little rough at the end. The battles are a little busy. Yeah, that's why I couldn't read Demon Slayer, is I wasn't really sure what was going on. But you might be able to find a panel of Samura versus Samura versus Chihiro. Yeah, I'll go on and talk about this one. I realize that's okay. First of all, great point. We're getting one person's story. They're not beholden to any producers or directors, so that's probably a reason why it is so beautiful. And what's great about this manga and this writer is, I realized the other day as I was watching it, there is no romance in it.
Okay, that's interesting.
There's no fan service at all. If you call fan service being, fucking cleavage and pornography stuff that you get from most anime, from SAO, it's full of that kind of stuff. So if you're looking for anime to kind of feed that desirous part of you, you're not going to get it in Kagurabachi, I'll tell you that. But if you want to find someone that has the main character who doesn't have a girlfriend he's protecting, it's just about the purpose behind why he's swinging his sword is to kind of take revenge on his father. It's to also, he believes that swords are for protecting people. Some people believe swords are for killing people and destroying. And it just so happens the most powerful swords are his father's swords. And so he's really trying to.
And why are they so powerful?
They are infused with a Dekensky, I think it's called. It's a kind of mineral that just shows up on this island. That his dad is the only one, God, so pretty. His dad is the only one who can forge this sacred mineral into that sword. So that's the ultimate sword right there that you can see. And once you channel your spirit power into them, then it magnifies it manyfold and gives you special abilities. We're finding out in the newest episodes.
Let's lock that into. So it's a stone that they found on an island, and that stone enhances the aura or the energy, the chi of the individual user. And so it enhances all users, but there are people in this story who have.
It's dangerous if you don't.
Sorcery. Yes, and if you don't have sorcery, it can fuck with your entire
Well, even
system.
if you do, right? People use it who do have sorcery, they hold it, and it's like a ticking time bomb. It gives you extra abilities, but then it's too strong to handle. And in the latest episodes, we learned that channeling even a little bit of your spirit energy or intention into it makes it explode. It creates a bomb. But the main character, or his dad, learns to channel it into these swords. And pretty much they're scattered out throughout the world now because this like secret
to channel that into the swords.
Yes, we're just learning in the newest episodes we just actually got the reveal a little bit of who the fourth sword master is. in a roundabout way. I don't know if you noticed, but I was pretty excited to learn that one of the newest characters introduced is actually a swordmaster. We're getting a little bit of a flashback. And the way that it's written, I was thinking about this in relation to...
It's glitching out on you because it doesn't want me to know.
Oh. Yeah.
No, you're glitching a little bit. You still there?
Am I back?
You're back. Okay, go on.
Great.
Yep, you're back.
Great.
Go on.
Yeah, I think that what I've really been feeling is gripping me so much is they're able to write. Japanese artists have this skill of writing where they're always reminding you like what's going on in the psyche of the characters. And that's what you get from whether it's a novel, like in Dune, they're able to do this way better in the novel of Dune as opposed to the movie. They're also able to do it in a manga as opposed to an anime. Even pretty good in anime, but the manga does a great job of giving you flashbacks of what this person's thinking. And he does a great job of the tone. So you get this beautiful art. You also get all these panels, and they're doing such a good job of making the badasses just feel badass. I think in a real simple way, we all love that these guys are so powerful. Like we have a new version of Minato, right? He's Shiba, the dude who can teleport with suspenders. Like he's just a strutting badass. He can get stuff done. It's not enough to be cocky. You need to also have your ability. Yeah. That guy is cocky and he can also get stuff done. Yeah. And I think the main point I wanted to talk about with Kagurabachi was the fight with Samura and Chihiro. So
Samura is like carrying. Yep, go on. Sorry.
Yep, no, it's all good. Samura is one of the characters who wields these magical swords. He's also a good guy. But you learn later on that he is trying to kill all the sword masters. So his response to the malevolence, to the destruction of the world, to the past deeds or mistakes, is to kill himself and kill the main sword master and free everyone from this. That's his answer. He cuts out his eyes because he can't. So that's a metaphor for what he's not seeing. He cuts out his eyes in one way to make himself a better sword fighter, not be tempted. But you realize that it's about an expression of his psyche. He doesn't want to see a different potential future. He's trying to hide himself from not being able to be there for his daughter. Right? He has these continual like mental images of his daughter committing suicide, and he can't face it. So he decides to go out in the world and kind of leave her and abandon her. And he erases her memories and leaves her in the care of some ninja, right? And then so you get this battle after Samura is a good guy. He suddenly turns on everybody, and he has a great battle with the main character, Chihiro. And that's the main thing, right? Why can't you face a potential future? And he doesn't believe that Chihiro can do it. Like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to destroy these blades? There's no way you can do it. And he ends up convincing them because his daughter shows up. And he ends up kind of believing and trusting in the next generation, right? He has to face the past and connect it to the future. And that's the purpose of N10, Chihiro's blade, right? The purpose is to destroy all the blades, not the people. And something awful happens to Samura. You get this amazing character arc in battle. And he decides to, put his confidence in Chihiro. And it's so refreshing, this anime. Not only does it, or this manga, not only is it not, there's no romance, there's no girly nonsense in it. Also, he's not a weakling. Dude, I've told you this. I tried to watch Neon Evangelion, and I tell you, the main character is weak and pitiful and sad, and I hate it. So if someone listens to this and they can convince me to watch Neon Evangelion, I can't stand it. Chihiro is the exact opposite of that. The determination and the confidence and the strength in his eyes. And the end of the first arc or I guess it's like arc in like 100. So it's the end of like the first main part of the story, part 1. Something big happens, right? He should be sad. He should be down in the dumps like Yuji, if like, I can't move on, I can't live, I lost everything. You get like one panel of him feeling sorry for himself. And then he does what he needs to do. He's going to make 2 new swords, and he makes it happen. Like, to see that is so refreshing, that he's not crying like Kirito does. He's not whimpering like in Neon Evangelion. Even like Yuji has a few moments, which I love those moments, but Chihiro is such a refreshing main character. It doesn't belittle any of these other characters. It just sets a new bar. It's so amazing. You're muted.
There we go. So one of the things that I like the most about Kagurabachi, not only because I myself love swords, but the idea that then all these characters are, this is all happening after something called the Seitai War. And so everything that's going on, these seven swords, how many?
How many swords are there? Six, not including N10. Yeah.
6 not including, so there's 7 swords total, right? And this obviously number magic can be used and seen in many ways, but the idea was that they were created to help defend Japan from a rival island that we're now learning about, because we didn't really understand why that these swords were created. So these swords were created by Chihiro, the main character's father, who is a magically gifted, foolish man who does things a little bit oblong, but he's brilliant at swordsmanship. And so he takes this magical substance, this diatsumi, or whatever it's called. And
Dekensky, that's what it is, yeah.
Dekensky, he makes it into swords. And then each sword has a magical power. And so that's the sword itself has levels of sorcery that then when tapped into, and I don't know, have they explained how each sword then has its, like N10 has its ability based upon whatever it is, the fish?
Not really. You could probably read in the lines, but not really, yeah.
What I think is because of Rokuhira has the ability to come up with concepts. So the idea to me is that these swords have the ability to be created into what they are because of the magician creating them, or because of Rokuhira's sorcery, most likely. And so, because they don't really talk about Rokuhira himself having sorcery.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So my thing is most likely Rokuhira, which we'll probably find out soon, has the ability to endow these swords with magical gifts. Thus, the power of the individual must match these things that hold the sword. And so Rokuhira gives all 6 swords to 6 different sword masters as they're being tested to be taking these swords. We don't get that right away. All you get is that there are 6 swords of the 6 mystical blades that he has, and he's locked them away. And upon locking these swords away, there are organizations, bad organizations, the Hikaru, right, are wanting to come after them. Hishaku, thank you, are coming after these swords because they want them for some reason or another, and you learn what those reasons are. And so what they do is in the first episode, you get the destruction of Rokuhira and the stealing of these 6 swords. Little do they know there was a 7th sword. That is the N10 that is given to his son, because Rokuhira saw and foretold through his own oracular ability what would happen if he had these swords around. He needed something to be able to give to his apprentice, which is his son.
Yeah.
And so you get to see this revenge story of Chihiro trying to find the Hishaku, because he's going to slay them all. Everyone who is listening, you can go to my channel, Magus in the Media, and you can see me break down the first few chapters. I'm continuing to break them down this week and the next, and we will get the past chapters leading up till now and the new chapters coming out, because I do think this is one of the great modern manga, the great modern myths that is coming out of our time. How to calm your power within, be able to slay the dragons on your path, and what happens if you allow revenge to take over your vision. We're always seeing, I think, revenge stories being negative stories, but there is something different with this. It's that they didn't just kill somebody. They killed somebody and then stole something that is really dangerous. Like they're
squandering his legacy. Rokuhira made these swords because he believed in their purpose was to protect people, and now people are using them. Like the first bad guy you get, he's a thug, right? He's using the swords to kill people and for power. And so that is actually what we've been talking about this whole time, is fighting for your why, fighting to put out in the world this meaning that the world is not just a place of chaos and suffering, and whoever has the most power and control wins. That's happening a lot in identity politics right now. That's the lesson, is whoever. Benjamin Netanyahu said it. Unfortunately, if Genghis Khan and Jesus were to come up to each other, unfortunately, Genghis Khan would win. He would have the upper hand, because if you can, be manipulative in the negative sense, if you can, just use, I guess it's sneaking around, using deception, then you're going to have one up on someone who has morals, who has dignity, like Batman, right? He has these rules and these lines he won't cross, and the bad guys are continually trying to tell us that makes you weak. And Chihiro is living the answer to that, which is no. It's actually the only answer that we have to this, of to live and use these swords that are for killing and kind of for destruction, but mainly for protecting. And it's got some political ins and outs too, which is pretty cool. It's talking a lot about the underbelly of like the Japanese gangs, and we're getting with the Dekensky and this new island of who has the rights to this mineral. And they do such a good job of not really letting us know what happened with the war, right? The Siete War ended in the malediction, which then, I know what that word means. I've heard that word, but it's got some weight to it when you read this manga. What's the malediction? You learn that one of these sword masters killed a lot of people, and you're not sure why. He seems justified. He's the Madara, right? That was his answer. He believes that the people on the island deserve to be killed, and we're not really sure what's going on. And so you're definitely getting this sense that you don't really know who to root for. Like, is that main sword master? Was he right in what he did? Chihiro doesn't really know everything that went on. Like, there's a mystery behind the wall, and that's what I love about these stories. When Chihiro learns what's really going on, is he still going to be able to, like, fight from where he stands now, or is he going to have to evolve and change his views? And you're always getting that. Like, these characters, as long as you're not Goku and Vegeta, who wait to have any character development until 20, 25 years, 30 years later. Which, by the way, Dragon Ball Super, amazing. You can watch that too. But really save that for when you get through Kagurabachi, because you get such beautiful character development. And the new characters are so good. And I think Magus, Brandon Lee, done a great job of aligning the mythology and the underlying meaning and depth of Kagurabachi, because initially I didn't actually see it. And so you can just read it and be entertained, but it's really hard to not see how beautiful it is when the Samura and Chihiro fight happens, when you really see the two good guys, right? The anti-hero and the hero. He thinks he has an answer, and this is what it's going to be, and you're not strong enough to live out your answer. You need to prove it to me, right? And they fight, and he proves it. And that in and of itself is worth watching it, even if it's just for that. It's so stylish. So we covered the stylish is how I'm going to segue as we wrap up here, going into an hour and a half. Is I listened to a dude online talk about that JJK. The last episode was so good because of how stylish it was. And we can go back if you want to talk more about Kagurabachi, but as a segue potentially to move us into there, I think the last episode of JJK was one of the greatest episodes of media that I think I've ever seen. And it's easy for me to exaggerate because it's so good, but I didn't feel the way I felt like that since Full Metal Alchemist, and that last episode where he defeats, and I think it was just because of how stylish it was. One of these YouTubers talked about how cool their powers are, how much. It's a real simple thing, but that Ryu guy with the granite blast thing, like him wanting to fight just because he wants dessert in his life, and the cuts to that. Here's again another example. They don't care about being cool. Hey, how about when we do this badass fight animators, why don't we cut to a table of desserts and let's make them all pink and bright and with cherries on top? Right? They don't give a fuck about being cool, but because they didn't care, it ended up being the coolest thing that's happened this year in anime, which is still pretty early, but that was, and it all came off the heels of great scenes of Yuji fighting the lawyer dude, and each of them being lit up in a different way. Right? They did a great job of lighting, which was amazing. That scene was so good of Yuji just admitting that he killed people, but he didn't actually really do it. But he just is like, yeah, I did that. And realizing that he shouldn't be forgiven for those things. And it ends up like being okay. And again, he ends up being friends. Like they help. They end up helping him. They need those guys. That's why Yuta didn't kill those dudes. Is he needed them to, kind of just going off here right now. But I realized they have a beautiful lesson in woke culture of Yuji talking to that girl who controls the sky. Don't remember what her name is. Mm-hmm. There's a little subtext in there. It's hard to figure out. People listening, please help. Write it in the comments. She gets triggered because Yuta is saying something to her, right? He's like, you don't have any friends? Like, what's wrong? Why are you so mad? They have this beautiful talk in the art.
Uro is her
name. Uro, right. So she was oppressed by the Fujiwara clan or whatever Yuta's from, right? Right. Yuta has privilege, you could say. And his bloodline used it to oppress Oro with this cool sky curse technique. And at the end, when everyone gets defeated, he says to Ryu, there is nothing I could say to that woman that would change her mind. And what Yuta said is, it's because I'm blessed, which is a different way to frame it than having privilege, right? He acknowledges that he's blessed. Yeah, iconic panel that's animated now. Great.
Iconic three-way domain expansion.
So good. Him pounding on his chest, the music that comes up, everything about it. Yeah. And then after this battle, you get Ryu waking up and then realizing like, yeah, I had the talk with you guys and there's nothing I can say to change her mind because I'm blessed. And so I don't really know what the next step is, what the example of that is, but it is a start to a great reframing about sure. You know, you could say that we have like dues that are paid to you because of our last ancestors, but that's not the point. The point is now that we can work together and sure, I am blessed, but so are you. Like the rising tide lifts all ships instead of us coming all down to the level of people talking about oppression. And so I don't even know if intentionally they meant to put that in there. And I don't really know what's going on with that talk in the art scene, but please, the community, keep on watching that scene, take apart that episode a little more because it's way more than just stylish fights. There's really something there that I can't quite get my finger on. But they've done such a good job of making it so beautiful. The scene of Itadori walking down the steps and they clip it and rewind it over and over again, talking to Choso. Like, what's up, Dusty?
What's up, Dusty?
It's so beautiful of you see Itadori, I'm still struggling with the people I've killed. I can't move forward. And then they click back. It's all shadowed in red. Those things you don't get in the manga. And so when you have a manga as beautiful as amazing as JJK, and then you get it animated and it's just taking it up to the next level. God, I hope the same thing happens with Kagurabachi. Can you imagine what the world's going to be like? Frickin' Israel can't bring apart the apocalypse until we get these anime finished. If nothing else,
any Mossad agents out there, if you could make sure Netanyahu doesn't blow us into oblivion, because we need to see. Did you hear? Satoru Gojo versus Sukuna may be fucking a 45-minute to an hour episode for the whole thing, and it may come out in a movie version. I don't know if that's
I hope they make it into a movie. Why not? They're doing that so much.
Yep. Dusty says, very cool guest tonight. Thanks, Dusty. I found him on the street, put him into a house. He's live streaming from it. He's actually, as in you see in this picture, he's doing a drop stance.
Water bending.
Well, he's water bending. So what about the JJK last episode? I do want to state, I want to reaffirm so people understand what good writing is and how you can exude styles through that kind of writing. And I think a lot of Western choreography in fight scenes needs to start doing this because characters, and especially characters who are super overpowered, as in are more powerful than everybody else, not like overpowered as in with Kirito, but it's that they need something to feed their passions. They actually start to crave suffering, which is where we get the Latin term for passion. It means to suffer, interesting enough. And so it's the idea is that once you realize how to gain power and how to alchemize yourself you actually start moving in the world and these experiences start coming upon you. Thus, when you overcome all these things and you are a very powerful individual, you go out looking for other powerful individuals, and sometimes you come up against and come up with certain individuals. And so this character, what he's doing is he, as he's fighting Yuta, is talking the whole time, and you're getting these cutscenes of him with dessert tables. And it's just a nice way of writing, which is exuding this idea is that he's never full. He needs to have more sweets, more things that fulfill him externally, and because of his normal experiences are so mundane. And so when these normal experiences are so mundane, you are looking for something to fulfill you: dopamine, serotonin, fancy cars, fast women, and like lots of lights. You know, you go down to Vegas and you're just looking for that serotonin dump. You stare at screens.
That's a great example of Ryu as a bad guy. If he's just like an adrenaline junkie,
that
right?
Seems
like
to be what it is.
Yeah, the thing that's driving him is, what does he say? I didn't have any regrets in my life, but my life didn't have any dessert. And his dessert was to not be able to fight someone strong. And at the end, it's such a beautiful line. I didn't realize there was more after everything was wrung out. So good. Right? Right when Yuta's curse technique cancels out, he's about to destroy him, but then they have this fist fight, and he's still able to get to eat everything that he wanted to of more craving. And he's a strong person, right? That's what chooses to make him strong. But Yuta is also blessed and gifted from being strong, but he's fighting for something way different. He's fighting to make sure that his friend Gojo doesn't have to kill his best friend again, right? The purpose that is driving him is something way more noble, right? His love for Rika, who's now the queen of curses, right? There's no way you're going to beat that guy. And to your point about, writing a powerful character like Ryu, who's an adrenaline junkie, or writing a powerful character like Yuta, who seems to be next to Gojo, the most powerful character in there, you can kind of curb his ability to be overpowered by just giving him a story arc that makes it so he can't kill the people he's fighting, right? If he wanted to just murder all those people, he could have, but he needed to incapacitate them, right? And befriend them so he could have their points. And so that is a great example of like, I have this strong character. Like, oh, how do I nerf him? Give him kryptonite. I don't know. How about write a good story around why he can't kill people instead of making up something? No shade on the Superman creator, like whatever. But someone who likes comic books, I think you see my point, is these writers have a much better way of writing into what it is that drives people, what makes people strong. And again, it's not just that they're blessed with a strong curse technique or that they've trained. It's that they're able to infuse their fist and their sword with a sense of meaning and purpose, what they want to fight for. And to kind of like bring it full circle here is in SAO, I want to make sure I'm not clicking out, but in SAO, Yuji tries to defeat one of the bad guys with just straight anger. Yeah, he's really upset that one of the main characters is being so reckless and harming her friends. And Kirito puts his hand on his shoulder and said, "You cannot defeat this person with anger and hate. Do you remember why you're here?" And then he comes up and defeats the main with his strength and what drives him. And that's a great example of, we think we can hate each other. We can think we're going to defeat the other person because we're righteous and we're angry with them. But even someone who is in the wrong, who is being reckless, your just pure hate and anger and your justification and your feeling justified for it isn't strong enough to defeat most things. You need to be pulling from something way deeper than just hate and anger. And they actually kind of spell it right out for you in SAO. They talk about some of the main characters, and one of the strong swordsmen, his name is Volo. He takes his strength from pride and responsibility that comes from a family that teaches swordsmanship. Yeah. And then something silly, you get this in Fullmetal Alchemist. Gokul Rosso gets his strength from confidence in his muscles of steel. Silly. but still he believes in it, right? Lena takes her power from pride and her polished skills. So even if it is something as silly as muscles, or something that is that has a limit to it, like pride or confidence in your past, it's still stronger than hate and anger. And then you move to like Kirito. Kirito defeats these people with just imagining a tree, right? The Giga Cedar. That's enough for him. And you actually never get like what Kirito is fighting for. We just know that he is pulling from something deeper than hate. He's pulling from something deeper than just chasing an adrenaline like the bad guy. And again, like Chihiro is doing the same thing. He's pulling on a lineage and a confidence that swords are made for more than just killing. And then that probably connects him to more like the whole mythos of the samurai code. You're not getting something of just war for war's sake and battle to be the strongest. You're fighting about an ideal. You really are infusing the sword with the why, which I think is that Nietzsche quote we're coming back to. These stories are much deeper. And if I want to just say to kind of, and we can keep on going, but if you think that I'm being anthropomorphic, like I'm projecting right too much onto these stories and reading too much into it, people might claim that you're doing that, or that I'm doing that listening to me if you've gotten this far.
Yeah.
To those, Brandon and I would probably both say that you're projecting your own sense of meaninglessness onto these myths. Yeah. That you've forgotten the sacred spark of imagination and ordinary magic in your life. And if you have, then you're not going to be able to see the inspiration and the beauty in these stories, right? Depth make characters legendary, for sure they do. And I believe that anime illustrates the resilience and the tenacity of the human spirit, right? They highlight courage in the face of adversity, the reality of never really being prepared for the challenges that we face, but how the call to adventure is going to awaken that power in us. And these Japanese storytellers, they found a unique way to depict how you could say our indomitable spirit, our perseverance. It kind of redeems the collective failure of this, of our lives and the flawed nature. Our perseverance is a response to the inherent and inevitable suffering and the tragedy of the world, right? The fight is a metaphor for compassion and preserving the sacredness of human life versus despair, resentment, and destruction as the answer to the corrupt nature of the human condition. I think it's much deeper than just like, oh, this is just a story and it's anime and it's silly. I think that's the best way that I can say it.
That's beautiful. No, I like that. Thank you, Nathan. That was, I completely agree with all of those things. I think it's fascinating, the day and age. And again, yes, thank you, Dusty. Spot on. He agrees. We all agree. It's a fascinating life in the world we found ourselves in, because in this day and age, we actually sit within the realms of the functional, mechanistic, substanceless world. And that is all a lie. That people out there are wanting to continually drag you into their own levels of depth, like death, despair, anxiety, loneliness. And they do that because they want you to feel what they feel. And the funny thing is others don't need to project those kind of feelings onto you, because it seems to be part of the human condition, especially in the Buddhistic terms, that all is suffering and imperfect harmony. The idea that all is suffering is it's a basic principle of existence itself. It's not something that we need to put upon existence and put upon ourselves, and you need to drag somebody into your worldview so that they can understand that you are suffering. It's like bro, not you bro, but the great bros and sisters out there, is that we are all on our journey, and we are all Sisyphus rolling a boulder uphill. And we just got to understand that levels of absurdism, because reality is absurd, and we're finding it more than ever, as there are these islands in the middle of nowhere where terrible and tragic things are happening to children because of billionaires and quadrillionaires and people who don't even use money need to find their kicks because nothing else matters to them anymore, that they have to ruin innocence. They have to be able to be blackmailed so certain bills get passed based upon the systems and structures of things. And the idea is that we find meaning in every step that we take. And it's all about the kinds of information that is moving into our perceiving apparatuses, the mythologies that we live upon, is how then we're going to project back into the world that reality is then created from. Because there is an objective reality out there, but the idea is that you only interact with your own perceptions. That doesn't mean I'm not picking up a mouse or I'm not picking up my drink and I'm not eating, but the idea is that how I perceive how those things taste and feel and how they make me feel are my intentions setting upon this perceived thing. And so my nervous system and my eyes and my brain, the great perceiver who perceives all things and interacts with our reality, is taking in and it's adding into the closed infinite loop structure of how then we experience the reality. And what I'm getting at is through the great modern myths of our time, through great storytelling, it doesn't matter if it's part of the East or the West. And Nathan thinks this as well, that the East is doing it slightly better through anime and manga and donghwas and web novels. And who knows why? Maybe it's because of the great suffering that they're feeling, because it's not like the Japanese culture is doing any better economically than we are over here. It's one of those fancy, we hear about all the time, the strange and crazy situations that these writers are being put upon.
Yeah.
But there is something that they're tapping into. And I think that it's that the corporate producer structure is actually wanting them to produce great stories so these things sell. Because right now, Jim Lee has said just a few weeks ago, maybe it's a few months ago, time is but an infinite circle. It's that he said that anime is beating out comic books right now at a drastic rate. And so it's like, what are they doing?
Well, you did that episode on how the box office is doing. If that's not an example of that, it's doing so well. You drove that home a while ago, man. Yeah, Demon Slayer went crazy. Yeah,
crazy. Infinity Castle fucking crushed it crushed Superman, Fantastic Four. It crushed everything. And this is just a mere cartoon, right? All you out there, it's just a mere cartoon. But just so you know, anime is an art form and it is masterpiece. And that doesn't mean all anime are created equal. It's just like humans. Not everybody is created equal. You actually have to work and suffer for what you get. You must do the great work. And that goes back down to exactly what I'm saying. If you follow the path of these characters, you're not needing to go out and massacre people on a revenge spree because your father died, right? Most likely your father didn't die. And if he did, it's because of some great disease. So if you're going to do something, you have to be able to heal your body with great knowledge, great information, and great storytelling, right? It's the idea is that maybe one day you will get locked in the great virtual reality and you may have to fight your way out of it. Well, it would have been fucking great if you would have watched SAO and realized you don't got to go up to fucking level 99, that maybe the creator and the great Demiurge has locked himself into that too. And he's the general of some actually the allegiance that you're fighting for yourself. And then you realize that you can defeat him. And you will die doing it. But if you die daily through your practice of invocation, banishing, meditation, and you take up the Bushido code, the exact thing that we're learning in Demon Slayer, JJK, Kagurabachi, that if we understand these practices, that then these great stories can lead us on our great journey. And that great journey is the hero's journey that we take every fucking morning that we wake up. Because if we understand mythology, it's just like the background that you're seeing right now in front of you, that as soon as that sun dies, it actually dies. And it is reborn every morning. And that this great world we're living in is the underworld. You are in it right now. And at this point of the story, you can become the hero on your journey. And you can learn what it costs to be the hero. Thank you, Nathan, for such a fucking beautiful stream. I'm so happy you came on. Everyone out there listening in this fine evening, we're going to continue. We're just going to continue putting this stuff out here because there's nothing better than making sure that we can defeat the great archons of the parasitic demiurgic elite. And there's only one way to do so, and that's to take up the sword of reason, use the cups of compassion, understand that with the wand of intuition, and to make sure you're making that skrill so you can continue paying your electric bill and making sure that internet runs, because you must use the gifts and the tools that we have been given. And so there's going to be more where this come from. And if you haven't subscribed, liked, and shared this with your friends, make sure you understand that next week I'm going to be coming out with my merch. Merch is coming out. It's going to have this great fucking logo right here. And it's going to be put on shirts and all kinds of things. I'm creating a Patreon. There's going to be membership, because the only way this boat runs is if we're floating on them discs. And, you know, if you just want to help out, create the community, we're going to be building more and more. Nathan, can you tell them where they can find you in the art of embodiment?
Great. Thanks, dude. Yeah, that was, I've never done anything like that before. I mean, we talk about this at cafes, but that was a blast. Yeah, dude. You can find me at taoembodiment.com. It's TAO embodiment.com. By day, I teach wellness education through the modalities of movement and posture, and also breath and awareness. So if you're looking for yet another way or something that fits your style of channeling these myths into your body, into your will and mind and movement and spirit, you can drop me an email. I don't do a lot of social media, but I also have Tao Embodiment on Instagram. I work a lot with how to develop your own breathing technique, as in Demon Slayer, how to channel your chi or your chakra into your cells and actualize these myths in your everyday, not to fight out there demons, but in here selves, as Brandon likes to say. And bro, I just want to say that the things you bring up and like enlightening my realizations, I think Hollywood is dropping the ball right now, because we realize they're compromised, right? We know that these people writing these stories are taking money, whether it's from, I don't know, someplace across the sea, and they say they can't have certain characters be Tibetan, so then we get Doctor Strange nonsense, or I don't know. There's all sorts of reasons why I think, you know, Dune is not great, or these shows are just soap operas. But I will, in leaving here, give an example of a cartoon, actual cartoon, that is not compromised, which we probably all know of. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think this is a nice way to sum it up. Uncle Iroh reminds us that you must never give in to despair. Allow yourself to slip down that road, and you surrender to the lowest instincts. In the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength. So who knew that Nickelodeon, in all of its flaws, was going to sum up what we're trying to understand and impart here to our friends? And instead we get 3 lines of text by a Japanese or Chinese tea drinker from the White Lotus group. So yeah, if you are feeling despair, I was actually just talking to myself, feeling it here in North Dakota. We are here, the despair of spring, winter, invoking Uncle Iroh, Chihiro, Yuta, Yuji, Kirito. Thanks for that dope thumbnail. Again, I've been Nathan M. Hanson with the Art of Embodiment, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you all out there. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share. This is what we're doing. I appreciate you all coming on. I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I think it's a strange thing that's going on. It's interdimensional aliens, extraterrestrial aliens, drones, UAPs. What's truly going on, and why is our congressman talking about it? Magus in the Media is here to break down myth, magic, and meaning in all things, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, because the geopolitics, the economy, the fucking government, what the fuck is going on? It's getting stranger than fiction out there, and it's time to call these things out, because there's been great writers like Jacques Vallée, Carl Jung, and the like, who are trying to tell you exactly what we've been seeing. Not only that, the great folklore traditions of old are also having the same ability. They are trying to help us understand what are these things that we don't understand and that we don't have words for. I appreciate everybody out there. I hope you have a fantastic evening, and I will definitely see you soon.